afternoon, and welcome to our webinar on mastering email deliverability in Limo Anywhere. My name is Brandon Edley. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Limo Anywhere. And for the next roughly about an hour, we're going to deep dive into a topic that's pretty critical and crucial for the success of your transportation business, which is email deliverability. In Limo Anywhere, email is pretty much the main lifeline of communication with your customers. Maybe you have SMS as well, but email is pretty standard, and it's how you confirm your reservations, send invoices, collect payments, and build lasting relationships with your customers. So I want to talk about the importance of email deliverability and sort of what happens when your emails don't reach their intended destination. What if they get lost in the spam folder, never to be seen again, right? This is I would say, pretty common challenge that a lot of online email users face, and in turn some LA users face, and it can have a serious impact on your business if you just leave it unchecked. Obviously misconfirmations can lead to no-shows, unseen updates can cause confusion and frustration, all that kind of stuff. And, unread emails obviously mean, missed opportunities. And I guess in short, poor email deliverability means that you could lose revenue and have damaged customer relationships. So pretty much why we're here today, right? That's what we're going to go over. So my goal here is to give you all the knowledge and the tools you need to take control of your email deliverability. And by the end of this webinar, you should have a clear understanding of how Limo Anywhere's email system works, why deliverability problems occur, and how to fix them. So I want to start by getting a better understanding of the basic fundamentals of email deliverability. So even though email deliverability is obviously essential, it's not always smooth sailing. Pretty sure some of you may have experienced clients complain that they may not have received an email, but then we can look on our side, we say, hey, it's sent. It's what's going on? So like I said earlier, it's not really a specific problem to LA. It's pretty widespread, and you can look up stats. They show you 50%, or roughly it's 46-47% of business emails actually get sent to spam folders, and this is all businesses, right? And so the reasons why that happen are pretty complex, but it boils down to how email spam filters work, and I'm going to deep dive into that. But in short, they use fancy algorithms, and they analyze emails for suspicious content and sender reputation, stuff like that. So in Limo Anywhere, our email system is designed to make things convenient for you, right? So when you send an email to a customer, it actually comes from Limo Anywhere servers, not your own servers. And they have a technical term that has been around for a while. You may have heard it. It's called spoofing, right? Sounds worse than what it is, but it's when an email is sent from someplace and that's not the sending address, right? And that's kind of what we do here. So, this approach does have its advantages in terms of ease of use, but if you don't set it up correctly, it can trigger spam filters. And so, spam filters, they're pretty much designed to look at and be suspicious of emails that appear to come from one place, but are actually sent from another, because it's a sign of quote unquote spoofing. So what is the result of your items being caught in spam? You have maybe some confused customers and clients not able to find your contact. But really, the important emails that are containing your confirmations or payment requests aren't reaching your customers' inboxes. And again, that only leads to revenue opportunities, missed opportunities in general, and possible damaged reputation. So trying to drive this home because it's very important to take care of this, and I'll get to the specific key points of what we need to do. So I told you I was going to tell you about how email works, right? And so before we dive into the nitty gritty of our email system, let's review the fundamentals, right? So sending an email is pretty much, it's like sending a postcard, right? You write a message, address it, put it in the mailbox, postal service takes it, and then they deliver it to the recipients, right? To the recipient's mailbox. Email is pretty similar to that, except for mailboxes, there's email servers, right? Which are just computers that transmit your emails across the internet, right? So like when you send an email, it goes from your device to your email provider, server. And then that sends to the recipient server, which in turn finally delivers to their mailbox. So just keep in mind that the key idea here is your inbox, your email server, the recipient's email server. And in this case, your email server is going to be Limo Anywhere server because like I said earlier, the emails send from our servers. So why do they end up, with this sort of simplified, it seems pretty basic, right? I don't think the post office loses that much mail sometimes, right? But why do emails go to spam, right? Like instead of the inbox, right? So, email providers, they use spam filters to like protect from unwanted and harmful emails, obviously, right? The kind of stuff that you actually want, right? But some of the common factors that can trigger spam filters are spoofing, which I don't think I gave you a definition earlier. It's like when an email appears to come from one source, but it's actually sent from another. Lack of authentication, which I'll get into this a little bit later. So that's like if your email does not have the proper authentication protocols, which are, I'll get into the terms later, but you probably have heard SPF and DKIM, these kind of things. They sound fancy, but I'll explain them a little bit more in detail later. Content issues, which are like, spammy phrases, common phrases that would be blocked, in an email or something like that. Those typically raise red flags. And then also the sender's reputation. So if your email is known for sending, spam, right? And it's you're sending thousands of emails of spam, then your reputation will actually get damaged with a lot of these email services, and they'll start marking your email as a spam more frequently. So I want to go back to like the email system and kind of equate this with Limo Anywhere. So we actually use a system that's quote unquote it's spoofing, but there are advantages, like it's the convenience, and Limo Anywhere handles everything. Whenever you send something out, our servers handle everything. So if you had 1,000 trips in a day, we could send out 1,000 emails. You don't have to worry about any email space or anything like that, or having your own servers. It just sort of works. But there are some downsides, right? Which are the spam filters. And I kind of just wanted to show you this slide where, let me go back, my apologies. I kind of want to show you this slide where you can see where Limo Anywhere fits in as far as the sender, and then our email, software, our email system handles the inbox portion of everything. So I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons, was spoofing and domain authentication or verification. Well, could be one of the reasons why your emails could be, sent to the spam folder or blocked from your clients receiving them. The first thing you want to do to sort of prevent this from happening is make sure that your domain is verified. So what does that mean, right? It's essentially providing to email providers that you are the person, or you are the entity that has control over the domain emails. And that's important again because Limo Anywhere is sending an email on your behalf. And so through this process of domain verification, you're letting all the email servers know that, hey, it is totally okay that it's coming from Limo Anywhere, but it says that it's coming from me, as an example. You do that by adding special sort of records or updating some, they call them DNS records in your domain settings. So what does that mean, right? So wherever you bought your website or your web address or your domain name from, wherever your .com or your .net was purchased from, and typically whoever you're getting your email service from or your website is hosted from, that is going to be the service where you're going to go to edit these settings and edit these DNS settings. But you authenticate your domain by accessing where you purchased your website or where you're hosting your website, and you plug in some special supplied code that we give you. So it's pretty straightforward. But it's pretty important because it's like having a verified badge on social media. It gives our email credibility that it could be sent on your behalf. And verified domains are far less likely to be marked as spam. So your emails do have a significantly much better chance of reaching the customers. And we do provide clear instructions on how to verify the domain in Limo Anywhere. So, I'll provide links of knowledge-based articles and blogs and all that, and also go through a little bit more details. So I wanted you guys to see what this looks like. This is a little bit more detailed version of what I showed you earlier, and which is like the flow of email. So starting up here, this is emails created, right? This is sending a confirmation to your system, and it hits the email provider, which is sort of our servers. It has to do all this signing and all this thumbs up basically on that email. And when it gets to the recipient's email server, it's just going to verify all of that stuff, right? So they kind of check, think of like a lock and key sort of thing, right? But they kind of check and verify that all the things that you provided for your email and all the things that you set up for it, for Limo Anywhere to send out, that they are correct. And when they pass, you'll get them delivered to an inbox likely. And if they fail, you will get them delivered to a spam folder likely. Now I say likely because every email service has its own sort of rules sometimes, right? And so they're not all the same. Some email services will pass where other ones will fail. So I said I was going to explain some of the terms like SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So I'm going to just spend a little bit of time going over it. So so they're not sound so technical. So SPF means Sender Policy Framework, and that just tells your email providers which services are allowed to send emails from your domain, right? One of the most important parts. Then the DKIM is like a signature that's on each email verifying its authenticity, right? So I mentioned when it's leaving our servers, if you go through this whole verification process, you basically can get a digital signature that lets all the other email servers know, hey, that this is actually coming from who it says it's coming from, and we don't have to worry about that it's coming from Limo Anywhere, as an example, or whatever service. So, and the DMARC is domain-based, or this is the most complex one, domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. So really it looks at the SPF record and the DKIM record, and it kind of tells what the email provider to do if one of those fail, right? So by setting up your records, the first two, you kind of, handle how the third one is solved. Sounds probably a little complex, but just think of them as additional layers of security that work together to prove your emails are like the real deal, right? And that users or like a hacker isn't trying to use your email to phish or something like that, or to gain access somewhere. So another important factor in email deliverability is the from address, right? So that's the address that your customers see as the sender. So it's I've seen this a lot, just over the years, and I know it's pretty tempting. Maybe when you first start to use like a free email account, like Gmail, like at Gmail or at Yahoo or something like that. But it's pretty much like not a good idea for like several reasons. Just my personal opinion. One, as far as professionalism, it may, I think it may look a little bit more unprofessional, and it could erode trust in your brand in some cases, depending on who you're working with. Sometimes free email providers have strict sending limits, which can be problematic. And you also don't get the ability in most cases to go in and edit those records and policies like I mentioned earlier. So all the SPF records and the DKIM, you typically don't get the ability to edit or change those settings when you're using a Gmail or Yahoo, right? So I just kind of got some examples of some good emails and bad emails, right? The standard, hey, this is a company that, like a company email that you get when you purchase your web address, right? Something like that. But you want to stay away from, these type of email addresses for the reasons that I mentioned before. So, done a lot of talking, and it's let's talk about practical steps on making this happen within Limo or Anywhere. I mean, it's pretty simple. Good news is that we kind of like help you out on this whole thing, and you don't have to do a ton, but you are responsible for the portion of, one, contacting, support at limoanywhere.com, just requesting, hey, I'm trying to authenticate my domain, and providing us with your actual domain name. I believe once that happens, we'll actually respond back with the records and all the stuff you need to place in your domain settings, and that sort of fixes the whole thing. I think from there you can actually check and see when it's been authenticated. I'll also place an article in the comment section and a blog post as well that'll kind of go into the whole process in detail. It gives you some examples of how to actually edit your DNS settings and all that with some popular website service providers. So I want to talk about some common issues that you could have, even with the best setup, you still may encounter some problems here, right? So one of the most common issues that I've seen is like email bounces. So that's when an email can't be delivered to the recipient's inboxes, right? So with bounces, there's two types of bounces. There's hard bounces and soft bounces. Hard bounces occur when there's an issue with the actual email address. So like if you type it in wrong or something like that, or if the address doesn't exist, then you'll actually get a bounce notification or an email. If you do receive one of these types of emails, like let's say you go to send a customer a confirmation and then you receive a bounce notification immediately, then you should make sure you go and update and try to get an updated email address. Reason being is you don't want to try to continue sending to bounced email addresses because it could cause issues with your sending, with your email credibility, so to speak, right? Then there's like soft bounces, which are temporary. So if somebody has a full inbox or something, or if there's a temporary server problem when you're trying to send the email on the recipient's end, those are soft bounces, and I believe you get notified of those as well. And like if you get one of those, you could just try resending those emails later. And so I did want to mention that, again, Limo Anywhere will send out a notification to you via email whenever an email is bounced that you sent. But know that that is just the first time an email is bounced. A subsequent bounces, I don't believe you receive, multiple email notifications. So just pay attention to that. So I want to talk about like some of the free providers and just some caveats with them that you want to keep in mind. Is that like these email providers have different kind of spam filters and algorithms that you can't really see or maybe have access to. And so like Gmail, for example, is known for having stricter spam filters than others. Same with Yahoo and even Outlook Mail. Now, this is not like the Outlook application like that you send mail, but this is if you have a @outlook.com email address. So sometimes you don't get as much control there, and you're not 100% sure what the actual spam policies are with these type of providers. So this is your customers using Outlook, Gmail, or Yahoo. So if you do have issues where some of your customers are complaining that they're not getting emails and they're on these providers, it is most likely going to be the all the aforementioned domain authentication and setting up the records and things like that. But if it is not, then simply ask them to look in their spam folders, try to go to their whitelist settings, which says, hey, allow all emails come through from mywebsite.com, right? And make sure that they check their spam settings as well to make sure that their spam filters aren't too high. So let's wrap this up a little bit. I want to go over some of these key takeaways. So key takeaways here: understanding the fundamentals of email and how spam filters work. You should verify your domain to establish trusting credibility. You do that through start it by contacting support@lemonanywhere.com. When you do that, you'll implement your SPF, DKI, and DKIM records. That whole process, that's essentially what you're doing. Make sure you use a professional email address that matches your domain for your website. And if you don't have one, you can simply get one from any of the domain registrars that are popular. These are your GoDaddies, your Googles, these type of companies. Make sure you are quick to troubleshoot issues like bouncing. So if a customer calls and says that they're not receiving an email or something like that, just call into support. I've seen sometimes where people just think it's not working or something like that. There's typically a reason that we could find out or troubleshoot as to why a customer may not have got one, and it's typically it went to spam or it bounced, and the bouncing is one of two reasons. So and that's something that we have insight into. And leverage Limo Anywhere support resources when needed. So again, I'm going to paste a blog post that we wrote specifically about this, and there's a knowledge base article that gives you some more information about how this works and exactly what to do. So we'll post this in the comment section, and make sure you just leverage those resources when you can. And lastly, take action. You don't need to get any other emails lost in spam folders, or maybe go to the Facebook group and say, hey, emails are not, anyone having problems with emails not being sent. It's typically just contact support and start implementing the domain verification and authentication steps that we discussed. Again, that is support@lemonanywhere.com, and just simply say, hey, I'm requesting domain authentication. Make sure you leave them what your domain address is, which is whatever is before the .com or .net or whatever, right? Like lemonanywhere.com. So our domain is Limo Anywhere. So just make sure you tell us your your domain for your email, and then we can start going from there. So I want to answer some questions here. Let's see what we got before we close out. So Nick says, Nick Palmer, thank you for your question, Nick. He says, how often do you need to do a domain verification? That is a really good question. You need to do your domain verification once, unless you change domains, right? So if you decide to change web addresses or email addresses for some reason, then that's when you want to change. I'm trying to think of another scenario when you would need to change. Let's say you kept your email address the same, but you changed email services, right? Let's say you went from, GoDaddy email to Google, their business email. You would have to re-enter those settings most likely, right? But typically those are the only times you'd have to do that. Yes, the subject line you use can affect deliverability, right? And so there's certain terms that you could use that email services, are more likely to block or more likely to see as spam. A lot of salesy, terminology, stuff like that, or anything that is, I don't want to say deemed inappropriate, right? But it's sort of outside of what you normally get, or what the receiver normally gets, could automatically mark it as spam. I suggest, and what I tell everyone, you can just Google, hey, what are some words that commonly get marked as spam, and that'll give you a pretty good indication of what not to use. But I can say even the default email labels and titles that we send out aren't typically the reasons why they are marked. Just know if you're going to customize your email titles, be careful with the length of it. You don't want to make your subject of the email an entire paragraph or something that could help you get marked as spam. Is it better? I don't know who sent this, but it says, how about the sender name? Is it better to use a real name and info at? And yes, real names are better. Absolutely. Not saying an info at is going to automatically get you blocked, but it is better and more descriptive. And I think even on a marketing side, on a marketing point of view, it's better to for them to know exactly who they're dealing with, right? I think it's more personable. And let's see what we have. Thomas says that they're having a lot of issues. Thomas, if you could just maybe shoot me your contact info in a message here, I could reach out to you. Or again, if you're having issues with emails, please just contact support. Let them know hey, I know I sent this email out at this time to this email address. They said they didn't get it. We can actually look and see if it's sent from our sort of email server, right? So we know for a fact if something leaves Lemoyneware's email server or not. Sometimes, it leaves our server and then it kind of gets hung up on the other side, likely because of a spam or bounce. Not often because of firewalls, to be honest with you, but of course we'll look into that. Let's see, Deanna. Hello, Deanna. I didn't get a chance to say hi. Rodrigo. Hello, everyone. And Michael. Thank you all for attending. And so I just want to say thank you again. This is, I hope this has been informative and kind of giving you an idea. I know you probably heard, hey, authenticate your domains and all this stuff, but it's why? What's going on? I don't have this problem with my regular email service. What is it? And it's because of how we have to send your email from our system. And those are the reasons why you kind of have to go through these things. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through our website or through our social media channels. You can reach out to me directly as well, Brandon at lemoniwear.com, or of course, message me here on Facebook Messenger. So again, I wish you all the best, and thank you for joining. Have a great day.